well-being at work, and how digital can help. Organizations need to be digital to survive. Most people would agree with that. But only those organizations will survive the next decade who treat well-being as a fundamental aspect of digital work. Not everyone might agree with this, but I hope after this talk, you will. Unfortunately, I need to bring you some bad news. Overwork is killing us. In May this year, the World Health Organization and the International Labour Organization published a study which showed that in 2016, long working hours led to 745,000 deaths due to stroke and heart disease, which is a 29% increase since 2000. And it's in our hands to change this. Digital is changing the way we're working. And over the 1.5 past years, no area has undergone such a transformation than the way we work. Digital enables us to work location independent and be more interconnected. But employees have also been reporting more and more symptoms of digital exhaustion. So feelings of anxiety due to the way of working, spending too much time on digital devices. And this is a growing problem, considering that digital is our new normal. But what is actually making us digitally exhausted? I wanted to find out, and I had my colleagues rate what they perceive as challenges for their digital way of working. And this is what I found out. Challenge number 1, high amount of screen time. So digital enables us to work location independent, but we're actually not as flexible as you might think, because most information workers are stuck behind some kind of screen all day long. And as other jobs are becoming more and more digital as well, they will be facing the same challenge. Challenge number 2, distractions and interruptions. I don't know about you, but usually throughout my working day, I work on something and then I have an email popping up and then I'm tempted to click on it right away just to find out what that person wants from me. Or sometimes I open my browser and to research something and then I remember, oh, I wanted to do that other thing. And then by the time I'm diving into the World Wide Web, I completely forgot the reason why I opened the browser in the first place. So distractions and interruptions are a major issue, and we're actually really good at both. So on the one hand, letting ourselves interrupt by colleagues, by client, sending us emails or chat messages, but we're also really good at distracting ourselves by working on too many tasks at the same time. Switching between tasks might seem like good multitasking, but we're dividing our attention rather than focusing it on one task. And this does not only lead to less productivity, but also more mental exhaustion. And mental exhaustion brings me to challenge number 3, information overload. Through digital, we can store more and more data and information. Just because computers can store an unlimited amount of data, it doesn't mean that our human brains are made for this. And this can create a state of panic. Humans like routines, and it's actually really difficult for us to change our habits. And that's why it's important to integrate well-being into our daily routines and the place that we're working in, which is becoming more and more digital. So instead of technology making us digitally exhausted, we should use it in a positive way. And that's why I define as digital well-being, using technology in a positive way that supports our mental and physical health. The speed of development of digital of the past decade has been extremely impressive, and without doubt, this speed will only increase. But the focus of the next decade, however, should be on the people and their well-being. And this is where my digital dream comes from. So well-being must be an integral part of digital work. But how can digital help us with our well-being? Digital needs to establish healthy working habits. So Microsoft has realized that if you want to change people's behavior, you need to change the tool itself. So as an example, they gave organizations the option to shorten their meetings from 30 minutes or an hour to 25 minutes or 50 minutes, so that people would have that 5 or 10-minute break between meetings. But what happened? People just ignored that and continued their meeting until the half hour or the full hour. So as a response to that, now Microsoft has introduced the option to put that 5-minute break at the beginning of the hour, so that finally people would accept to have that break in their meeting marathon. If this will work, time will tell. But this shows how difficult it is to convince employees to take care of their well-being. Microsoft's people officer, Kathleen Hogan, said, "It's not sufficient to only encourage self-care. We need to innovate and leverage technology to support employees to operationalize much-needed breaks into their daily routines." So organizations need to design applications or offer applications that mediate that work-life balance. So that could be, for example, a suggestion to take a break after a couple hours of work, or a suggestion to end your working day and disconnect from work. So smart recommendations in our computer can remind us that there's a world outside of our computer as well. Digital needs to support collaboration. There's this thing called meeting bloat, and meeting bloat is one of remote work's most counterproductive trends. Without well-defined ways to indicate progress and participation, showing up to meeting has become the way to show work. But that doesn't help employers nor employees. So a high amount of meeting actually eats up the time of getting our actual tasks done. And studies have shown that collaboration overload is actually leading to less productivity, and over 80% of all employees have their emails open at all times. So digital needs to help us with this. Digital needs to help us with our collaboration, but also needs to help us for us to focus. So it could, for example, mute notifications for a certain amount of time, or also give us insights on our collaboration habits, such as, are the meetings that I'm participating in actually helpful for me? Research has shown that brainwave patterns associated with stress and overload were much higher in remote collaboration than in face-to-face collaboration. And this shows that digital is more mentally challenging for us. And we need to keep this in mind when we're designing digital experiences. How can a digital connection be closer to the connection that we experience face-to-face? Digital needs to avoid information overload. Structuring and processing data is more important than ever, and digital can help us with that. So I don't know about you, but throughout my normal working day, I usually have a lot of tasks and topics coming up where I know I need to follow up on. And instead of struggling, deciding where to start, what to do first, I would like to have my personal, intelligent task management tool. So something that automatically captures all my to-dos, especially the ones I forget about, and gives me a suggestion of prioritization and tells me my daily agenda. So instead of struggling and wasting mental space to remember what I'm supposed to do, I would like to have that mental space back to actually form my ideas and actually work on my tasks instead of trying to remember my tasks. And digital needs to give us flexibility. And organizations now have realized that digital can give us flexibility. But when I talk about flexibility, I don't mean being able to decide if I'm going to work from home or from the office. No, flexibility means that we can work without having to be stuck in front of some kind of screen. And in the end, flexibility means that every individual can choose the time, the place, and the way to work, depending on his and her needs, and depending on what supports his and her well-being. So, if we fulfill or we put these characteristics into practice, we would actually get a big step forward in fulfilling my digital dream. But technology is not the solution. It's a means to the solution. All the technology in the world will not help us with our well-being if the organizational culture acts against it. Remember this hypothesis? Only those organizations will survive the next decade who treat well-being as a fundamental aspect of digital work. Well, it's in our hands to do this. And yeah, what can organizations do to master the next decade? There's this thing called presenteeism. So just being present for the purpose of being present. And digital actually help with that quite a lot. But this thing called presenteeism still exists in a digital environment. So this will lead to longer working hours or taking fewer breaks and employees having a feeling to be online and available at all times. So this shows how important the organizational culture is when we talk about the topic of well-being. If the policy says no emails after 10 p.m. and the CEO is sending out emails at 11 p.m., nobody's going to listen to the policy. To maximize the benefits of digitization, we need to put people's physical and mental well-being at the heart of technological transitions. So only implementing my suggestions will not be enough. We need to completely reimagine the way we work. And while we do that, think about the human first to build a sustainable future where everyone can feel and perform at their best. Well, now I talked a lot about well-being, and now you might wonder, what can I do for my personal digital well-being? Of course, everyone's different, and everyone has different needs and solutions, but I would like to share my top 3 tips with you. Use the benefit of digital. Got a non-interactive meeting? Just take that meeting with you and go for a walk. You got a lot on your plate and you really need to get something done? Well, find your flow state. So mute all your notifications, try and get into that zone. And the flow state is something where you start working on something, you don't even notice the time passing by. You get things done, and it's a great feeling. And sometimes the best thing that you can do for your digital well-being is to simply switch your computer off.